Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of Word Recorder videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another Roll20 review, my written and video review series where we take a look at the marketplace section of online role-playing website, roll20.net. With this video, I'll be reviewing the D&D 5e 3-in-1 campaign setting, Spelljammer Adventures in Space, published by Wizards of the Coast and adapted by Roll20. A review copy of the module has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider supporting me via patreon.com/roguewatson. So I do not have any nostalgia for Spelljammer. I'm not one of those who was begging for any Spelljammer news or making these Spelljammer confirmed jokes. I never really got it. I don't have anything against it. I just don't have anything for it. I have no reference. It was not a big thing. When I was growing up, I don't think there's ever been a video game made of it. Therefore, I don't have a good, and it hasn't been obviously existing in 5e, which is where all my D&D knowledge pretty much comes from. So you are going to get this review from someone who really doesn't know anything about Spelljammer and is jumping into the entire Spelljammer campaign setting for the very first time. And in this review, I'm going to actually break it up into 3 parts. We're going to talk about all 3 of these components: the Astral Adventurer's Guide, Boo's Astral Menagerie, and the Light of Xaryxis, which is the included adventure, which you can see here in Roll20. And I'll spend a good amount of time on that because when it comes to the Roll20 adaptations, adventure is usually what we're looking at. How well it looks on the VTT, what do the maps look like, how well does the adventure integrate into things, what kind of tokens do you get. I'll be going over all that information, but this is kind of a unique product because it's not just an adventure, and it's also not just a source book. It kind of has all those things included. I will say the included adventure is much bigger than, say, the little included adventures with like Xanathar's and Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. All of those were very, very small, teeny tiny adventures as a part of the larger setting book, whereas this, it really did divide up each, the whole product into these 3 different separate products, and yet that also unfortunately means the Astral Adventurer's Guide as a setting source book feels really underbaked and underdeveloped compared to a lot of other settings and source books. So what all do you get when you purchase the Spelljammer Adventures in Space bundle on Roll20? Well, you get all 3 of these products. The Astral Adventurer's Guide includes 2 new player backgrounds, 5 new races, 16 spelljamming ships, do include their own tokens, and I guess it's a stat block. It kind of looks a little differently, but I was very impressed with the fact that we actually get token art, and they all look very cool, and I'll show you what that looks like a little bit later. And then Boo's Astral Menagerie, which includes over 60 new spacefaring creatures. So all of that information is added to the compendium being that kind of shared resource that you as the DM can use in any of your Roll20 games, and then you can choose up to, I think, 5 or 6 different Roll20 games to be able to share that information to everybody else so that they can create, their characters and use all the new content in, for example, the character monster. That's in the compendium. You also get the art pack, which includes over 120 tokens and handouts, which the art pack is essentially includes, let's see if I can find it. I meant to have this pulled up. That's my bad, but we will see if we can find it this way. Essentially any piece of art that is included in any of the books is included in the art pack, which includes, there we go, right here. All of these, any kind of picture, which includes obviously creature art is going to be there, but also just if there was, an art that just depicted different creatures in it, then those will be included as tokens. And there's, I think, 60 of these, which have the kind of what has become the official NPC or monster token with the kind of red and yellow background, and then they have a separate one for the PC versions, which include this blue background. But it's pretty nice to include, if you want to use any of the new art, whether it's from the adventure or from the Astral Menagerie or any of those books, all of that stuff is here and gives you a nice little starter for especially all the new races and things. And I believe this include, so the handout versions as well is included. You can use that, but anybody, you can drag this and use these in any of the games with the art pack. And then you get the actual Light of Xaryxis module, which is a level 5 through 8 adventure which is included here. It is organized into 4 parts, and each part includes 3 chapters for a total of 12 chapters, and it's kind of broken up. I'll go into that as I go into the adventure more, but I actually like the way that's organized into smaller bite-sized sessions. It includes 16 5-foot maps. That seems like a lot, but please note that most of those are actual ship maps. To where when you look at here, like most of these are actually all of the ship maps, and then very few. In fact, all of the, except for, is it Topola's Tower? There's a few of them that are not, like, most of the content actually takes place in ships. And then there's a few that take place in other areas, and those are typically bigger maps. So they might actually all be ship maps, in fact. But just note that not all of these ships are actually used for the adventure. So even though we get maps, like a battle maps for all the ships, only like 3 or 4 of the actual ship maps are used in the context of the adventure. So it sounds like there's more maps than there actually are for the adventure. 1 10-foot map, 1 20-foot map, 1 25-foot galaxy map, and then 4 non-gridded region maps. It also includes over 100 monster sheets, which that includes, not even necessarily all the ones from the Astral Menagerie, but every creature that appears in the module itself will be included here, which is a lot of the new content, but also stuff from, just the monster manual, and I think that's the main other source that we're going to see here are included. So basically every creature you need for this adventure is included in here, and then any other creature from the actual Astral Menagerie is going to be here in the compendium, which, as you can see, I've actually filtered the results to just show those monsters. So that's all that's going to be here. We also get 20 player art handouts, which does not include the fact that all of these monsters also has their own handouts here, which you can, that way you can show your players these handouts without showing them the actual, character sheet itself. But here are the actual art handouts of different scenes and things you can show them. Plus 16 magic item handouts, which is very, very low on magic items compared to a lot of other campaigns. But again, this is going to lose content-wise compared to other adventures because it's only a level 5 through 8 adventure, which is about, what is that, like a third as long as a lot of the other published 5e campaign books. Similar to how the actual source book itself is going to feel a lot lighter than other books. So it's a weird product to review because you're getting less content compared to if they had just given us a full campaign adventure and if they had just given us a full setting book. Instead of this weird kind of, we're going to give you enough content to where it fills one book, but it's kind of divided up into those 3 different things, and the third one being the monster book. All right, so let's cover the Astral Adventures Guide first, and you can see this is what the compendium looks outside of the Roll20 game, because it's really easier to navigate this when I'm not in this game, although I do like the dark mode quite a bit. So Astral Adventurers Guide is divided into only 3 chapters. It includes obviously a little bit of information about the Astral Sea and how spelljamming works with the ships. Chapter 1 covers all the new player options. We've got our 2 new backgrounds and our 5 new races. I was generally thumbs up on all this content. I mean, we finally get freaking Thrycreen, which is awesome. I love my insect folk. I like the robot gnomes are pretty powerful. They have all the benefits of being a robot and none of the drawbacks, though, which feels kind of cheating. And in fact, they get to add like an extra D4 whenever they rest. The Hadozi get to freaking glide, and they can manipulate things with their feet. They can also have climbing damage and an ability to reduce damage as a reaction. Plasmoids let you squeeze into very small spaces, which of course feels like the bane of any DM, especially since you can do that at level. It almost seems problematic to the point that Eric Croker is problematic, because at level 1 the player can just get into places that most people can't without using some kind of magic spells, and that feels a little bit tricky to work around. The GIF are, for some reason, they're all about like guns, so that's a weird thing. If your DM is not allowing guns, then your GIF is probably not going to be that impressive. But overall, I really like these new races. I thought they were creative and cool and interesting, and I think they add a lot to the gameplay experience. It is tricky because I think a lot of them are based in the Astral Sea. So if you wanted to actually play one of these races that is only on the Forgotten Realms, I think you could still bake that into the context, but you're probably from space or have some kind of, you were maybe left there Superman style or something on a planet. But otherwise, I think you can all include them on whatever other setting you want, Plasmoid being especially exotic and crazy. I mean, Warforged already exist in Eberron, so I don't see as a little clockwork gnome as being maybe that crazy. And Astral Elves are literally just space elves. They're not that interesting, frankly. Then we get a whole chapter on how the astral space works, how they can produce their own gravity bubbles, their own weird air envelopes, because it's not like real space, which it took me a second to wrap my head around, because again, I don't know what I was looking at here, and instead it's like you're drifting through the astral sea, and everybody can actually propel themselves forward just telepathically. You don't age at all when you're out in the astral sea, so it has its own really unique rules, and it's not at all like space travel. And so everybody's just on boats, like straight up boats and fantasy ships. They're not like, you know, spaceship versions of fantasy races or anything. So it's a lot different than what I was expecting there. And the main thing we get are spell jamming ships, which there's some good news and bad news here. The good news is we get a ton of cool Spelljammer ships, which a lot of them are designed to work with certain races, like the Neogi have their certain ships, Mind Flayers have their ships, Astral Elves tend to use certain ships. All that is pretty cool, and they've all got certain weapons and things, and you can maybe kind of modular, but for the most part, they're designed to include, you know, like the Nautiloid includes the tentacles and everything. Oh, the Beholder has a cool one. What was the Beholder one? Oh, I wish I remembered what the Beholder one was called. It was a giant, like, meteor, tyrant ship. I believe it was like a meteor-looking thing that has, the eye stalks, and the Beholders cruise around in these. It feels very cool, you know, science fantasy, where all the, you know, races use ships that look like them, even though as humans we're not building ships that look like ourselves at all. But it's really fun looking, and in fact, if we go to the hopefully they're on the token page where you can see some of these ships. If they're you know, they might actually be on the galaxy map. Okay, I think some of them are here. Oh, here we go. Yeah, the vehicles. So look at how impressive these ships look, and the ship art especially looks really, really cool. Like, honestly, it's a huge thumbs up. I thought the fact that Roll20 uses the actual art from the book as the ship token is a huge plus. They look really great here, and then they're actually linked to their own little unique stat blocks. You can see how Roll20 includes all the information here under the bio and info tab, and, you know, AC hit points, and then the character sheet obviously doesn't look like a real character sheet, but still looks kind of interesting. It's got little action tokens because it takes, you know, the design is multiple crew is supposed to operate this weapon, so you can actually fire it within an action, and you can see it's got its hit point, so it's kind of its own unique stat block. So honestly, I was very impressed with how the spelljamming ships look and operate in Roll20 from a purely like token standpoint. And I believe if we go to the galaxy map, which does look really nice, this is blurred. There we go. I'm going to scroll out a bit, and you can see how, you know, the ships all look pretty cool. This is actually showing different stuff from the campaign that you would probably need a galaxy map for. So like one point a Githyanki shows up in a dragon, and you can use your own ship token here. There's a giant space, what are they called? Space sharks are called scavers, I believe, that can show up. So that's what you see there, which is cool. Like, this is essentially your random encounter space table. There's all the vehicles on that side, and it looks, I think it ends up looking pretty good. You know, it's a approximation of trying to do a space battle map, and I really appreciate Roll20 putting together one of these. So huge thumbs up generally for the spell jamming ships. Unfortunately, if you're looking for actual rules on how to operate that ship, I think you're going to come away really disappointed, depending on how crunchy you were looking for. I guess if you were looking for the least amount of crunch possible, if you want to have just, you know, strained soup for your ship experience, then this works perfectly fine. But I think a lot of folks, when they were looking for Spelljammer, I'm presuming, maybe wanted just a little bit of crunchiness. Maybe you want to do like a little bit of the Star Trek thing where people have to operate their own, you know, areas, and they're making different things and happening. But the problem is it's all just kind of fantasy stuff that just kind of works. The way the spelljamming helms work, it's just kind of like telepathy, and you can instantly do whatever you need to. It's just it's a little too easy and too fantasy-ish compared to, like, at least make it as challenging and interesting as operating a ship on the water, for example. And I don't even think we get that. So even compared to like Ghosts of Saltmarsh, I think this is weaker rules overall. In fact, I think there's more rules for crashing than there are for actually operating the ship. I guess Launchpad would be proud. So it definitely comes up short in that area, which is a bummer because, like I said, the ships themselves, I think, are a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun lore, some great art. I love the way the tokens look. The way the stats break down, that works fine, but the actual like ship-to-ship combat and how all those rules play out, I think is unfortunately pretty disappointing. So that is a bummer for the most part. And that's chapter 2. And then chapter 3 is all about, it's the one area that we have of a adventure idea or a story hook or something, which is kind of this adventure hub. It's this asteroid, which is only a mile wide, which is nuts. Like, this does not look like a mile wide. This is, do people not know how long a mile is? Like, come on. This looks way longer than that. But it's an adventure hub city that travels around the astral space, and it's your classic, like, this is your, you know, your main city of your astral space campaign, which if you're going to pick one area, it's smart to do that one, I guess. My problem, and I like, well, let me say I like it. I think Rock of Brawl is great. It's an awesome location. In fact, we can look it up. It's got a map here, which is also really cool. It's all annotated within the adventure. And yes, of course, you go here in the Light of Xaryxis adventure, which is great. Again, this doesn't look like a mile. But you know what? Credit to Roll20. Look what happens if I do the compass. Everybody knows how many feet are in a mile, correct? Boom, 5,200 feet. Like, damn, all right, they scaled it correctly. That's pretty cool. It's a really neat adventure hub. There's a lot going on here. It was founded by pirates, and then they transformed eventually into a full city. It has no city watch. It's just ruled by a monarch and a bunch of underbarons, including one of them who's a mine dweller who dwells like deep down in the interior. To get water, they have to like harvest ice asteroids and grab them and, you know, cut and break them down. There's palaces and restaurants and guild halls and markets. There's a whole monster hunter group called Xeno Termination. There's a thieves guild, which is also the acting troupe and company. There's a bunch of violent rebels. There's a tavern called the Happy Beholder, which is run by a beholder called Large Luigi, which is fantastic, who's got a little parrot that he uses to cheer people up. I love really everything about Rock of Brawl. I think it's awesome. So I don't want to, you know, start out complaining about it. I think it's great. If you're going to do a chapter of a source book, this is the great one. My problem is this is all you get with Astral. When it comes to, like, I want to create an adventure setting in the Astral Sea. We want to adventure fully in, you know, the spelljamming world and go beyond whatever planet we're on, probably Faerun. This is all you get. You don't really get anything else. For the Astral Sea, really. I mean, you get, there's some notes on, I guess, Doomspace and Xaryxis, but those are tied to the adventure itself. So what I'm looking for is things besides the adventure. Where can I go? Give me ideas of other star systems, or where's the Neogi home planet, or, you know, something. You know, when you most source books, they're going to give you locations and ideas. I'm not expecting full adventure stuff, but give me a nice little. And I realize Astral Space is hard that way because it's, you know, everything's moving around and it can be tricky to denote where everything is. I think we'd get one bigger, is it this one? The Astral Plane. Oh, you can see I'm way zoomed out for that. But here's an idea. You know, give me, you know, adventure sources for these dead gods or all these different wild space systems, and give me some examples there. And we really don't get any of that, which is a huge bummer. I like Rock of Brawl. I think it's great, but I was very disappointed that that's basically all we got. After that, that's it. So, you know, Rock of Brawl, big thumbs up to what it does. I think every Spelljammer campaign should include Rock of Brawl. There's a great amount of content here. It's all wonderful, but let's see. There we go. There's the picture I was looking for. Large Luigi. That looks like a Happy Beholder. It's awesome, but I thought it was really, really lacking in that regard. So Astral Adventurer's Guide, what's in there I think is really good, except what is not in there is bad, which is I think it's lacking some ship rules, specifically some more crunchier ship rules that I think would have been nice to at least give me that, and then I as the DM can choose what all I want to use. You know, give me more than I need. And then adventure-wise, we basically only get stuff on the Rock of Brawl and nothing else for the adventure. Boo's Astral Menagerie I think is really good. Let's see, did I have one of those tabs open already? And I'll tell you, reviewing 3 and 1, a little bit tricky here. I did not. All right, let's open yet another tab. There's Boo. And you can get him from here in the compendium, or like I said, we can look at him in here, which is the I've filtered out my creature list. The creatures, there are, what did I say, 60 here. Just note that, like, actually we go to the token page. About half of those creatures are variants of the same kind of stat block. In other words, they're kind of like the NPC races, which is fine because a lot of space races should be different space civilizations. So you've got like your Astral elves, your Artuk, which are like starfish people, which look pretty cool. In fact, they're right here. You've got your like space lizard folk. I forgot what they're called, something with an S. There are Neogis, there's Vampirates, Dawar, which are like penguin people, Mercane, which are these like big psionic giants who are all about trading with people. So a lot of those, and we get like 3 or 4 stat blocks for each one of those. You know, or like 5 for the Astral Elves, for example, 3 for the Artuks. You can see there's, and all the races, obviously. Gifs, Hadozi, they all got multiple stat blocks. Githyanki are obviously from space. That's like half of the stat blocks are those. So you don't get a whole lot of the crazy cool monsters. However, the crazy cool monsters that we do get are pretty cool. I think the Kindori's at the Space Whale. Yeah, Space Whale's pretty cool. There are... I can go through cool creatures. Savars are the space sharks. Braxit is a cool kind of stand-in for like a Rancor, just a large bipedal creature who can psionically create like a shield effect, even though he looks like a big fucking tank dude already. CR9, fun creature. Fear can feed, and there's really good art for all these things also. Feeds on like the dreams and nightmares of people. Something started with a T, I think, a Thanogi that could eat brains. What was it called? Shoot, maybe it wasn't a T, but it could store a certain number of brains. And there we go, it's Nethalgu. And then you could actually determine as a DM how many brains it stores, and that determines like how many spells it has available, which is pretty fun. So I like a lot of the cool monsters. Honestly, the Eyemonger. Eyemonger's so good. Where's the Eyemonger? This is the thing that's a cross between like a beholder and a fucking asteroid. It's just like a screaming asteroid creature, and it can actually like hide itself as an asteroid. This is what they look like in Roll20, by the way, with the the stat block, and then we've got the actual. Once I drag it onto the map, we're actually gonna just do it this way. Let's find the Eyemonger. There's the Cosmic Horrors, really creepy giant tentacled creature. There we go, Eyemonger. So the token's already here. Obviously, you can drag them from the. I was looking at the compendium. This is the actual games creatures, but then here's what the character sheet looks like. If you haven't bought a thing before, everything's already tied into the sheet. You can click on everything. It's all ready and available. You can either copy and paste from this DM table, or you can drag and drop onto any map that you need it. So if I wanted to go to this tower where this kind of redneck space lady lives with her bunch of birds, then I can just drag whatever I need on there. What's a cool creature? There's my Eyemonger. There we go. And it just appears there instantly. And you can see dynamic lighting is actually not very present on this map. There we go. That looks better with the tower and everything. Maps wise, well, I'm getting ahead of myself with the adventure. So the Menagerie is very cool. I don't think I have any complaints about it necessarily. In fact, I think I have praise for it mostly. I think the creatures are all pretty cool. There's a good mix of having, normally I could see where you could complain about having a bunch of, it's just a bunch of NPC stat blocks, but those are a lot of what you're going to use, right? And you want to be able to come across those spacefaring civilizations, your Astral Elves, your Neogi, your Artoks, your psionic giant people. That's a lot of the kind of creatures you're going to come across. So you get half of those, and you get half of these crazy, cool, creepy monsters. Oh, there's the Surlons, which are really freaking creepy. You do come across these in the Light of Xaryxis campaign as well. These creepy worm-looking things. They look so nasty, and they have ability to like transform into other people. It's creepy as shit. So I like it a lot. So basically, thumbs up to Astral Menagerie for what it gives you. I think it's a good mix of things. All right, maybe the moment you're all been waiting for: the Light of Xaryxis. This is a pretty uniquely sized adventure. We don't really have another one that does 5 through 8. Uniquely, it poses it pretty well to go from a Phandelver or an Icespire Peak, one of those, or Dragon Heist, I think, maybe the same length, that just is a tier 1 adventure, to go into a solely tier 2 adventure, which is a huge rarity. I am going to declare right now, I think this is probably one of the better adventures that Wizards has put out. Which you could be snarky and say, well, that's not saying much, Eric. And I'd be like, oh, you. Why are you so snarky? But honestly, I think it does a really fun job of nailing the pulpy sci-fi thing that it's trying to do, which I'm trying to see what it actually even says. It's supposed to be like a Flash Gordon, which I don't actually have context for that. I had to look that movie up. But a very, science fantasy, very fun, very like cliffhanger at every curve, very action adventure, very cinematic. And that's honestly how I run a lot of my adventure campaigns as a DM. So I think based on that, I have an absolute, really enjoy. Here we go. Inspired by the 1980 film Flash Gordon, the adventure's heroes, implausible situations, over-the-top dialogue, absurd plot twists undercut the sense of urgency, keep the heroes on their toes, they stumble from one danger to the next. I think it does all that very, very well. And the fact that it's broken up into much smaller chapters. Now, the weird thing is, it says it's divided into 4 parts. Each part is divided into 3 chapters, and each chapter takes 2 to 3 hours for a total of about 12 sessions. I don't know if that quite adds up math-wise. I guess if you're having longer sessions, you can maybe do 2 chapters a session or something. I don't know how it works out math-wise, but I would do, basically it breaks out to me that each chapter could be a session. So you're looking at about 12 sessions, which means they actually effectively created a Fandelver-sized adventure for Tier 2, which is pretty interesting. And I think it's a hell of a lot of fun. I really do. The maps suck, unfortunately. The Rock of Brawl region map is really good. I'm glad we got at least some kind of astral space map. The actual space map for ship-to-ship battles is fun, although you noticed I didn't have very good comments to say on the actual mechanics of the ship-to-ship battles. But the ship maps themselves perhaps aren't great. Is it the Nautiloid that has extra stuff on? Actually, you know what? They give you these blank maps, and then I think these actually aren't the ones you use for the campaign. I believe they're called... Yeah, they're actually called the different maps. So Moon Dancer, Dark Star, the Lucent Edict, I believe, is the derelict Nautiloid that you explore. Yeah, this one. So this one actually has the tokens and stuff already on place. It's got one of those cool Nethalus in there. There's Surlons in here that... there's a cool backstory about how they're luring people into this map. But... It's a crappy looking map, right? It's just not even graph paper. It's just this plain parchment paper with, no color detail. Like, there's a little bit of detail, but it's like, hash marks for stairs and everything. It's not what I want to see when it comes to a professional Wizards D&D map product. And it's weird that some they give all out for maps and it looks great on VTTs, and others they don't. And unfortunately, this is the latter. We did not get very good map quality content for this adventure, which is a huge bummer because honestly, I think it is a fantastic adventure. Just to go through kind of what happens, it starts off very much almost like the plot of the Star Trek 09 movie, or also maybe to some extent one of the Superman movies did this too, where it's like the villain's goal is like to drain an entire planet's resources, which I think we've seen. Like I just rattled off 2 examples. These giant astral tendrils. So the party starts off on their own planet. They're supposed to be near just a coastal town, and these giant vines come down and basically start leeching energy out of the entire planet. And then there's this cool inciting incident where the players, that is the inciting incident, and the players have to rush to a shipyard, and it just happens to be where there's a person there who can pick up the players and take them on her ship. And it turns out her ship, the Moon Dancer, is an actual flying space galleon, and you take to the stars and you begin your astral adventures as you try to basically discover what the fuck's going on and try to save your home planet, which I think is a pretty great plot hook right there. Like, holy shit, something is has invaded our planet, but it's not like an army has invaded. It's like this mystical thing that we can't stop has started, and we have to go figure out what to do. And it turns out the astral elves are from this planet Xaryxis, which the only way they can keep their home system alive is by leeching energy from other systems. And they have chosen the player's home planet as their latest venture. And the adventure is you coming out to terms with that. You're meeting different NPCs. You meet so after your initial adventure hook, you get on that ship with this lady here. But she's not in it very long. You basically you get attacked by astral elves. You can learn more about the fact that they're the ones doing it. And then you go to the Rock of Brawl. And I believe that's where, let's see, I guess it's just chapter 2 right here is Rock of Brawl. Yeah, and then chapter 3 is the actual, God, there's a lot that happens. And of course you have your Spelljammer on that ship is a flump with a pirate hat, which is fantastic. Really, really great over-the-top characters. There's a lovely vampire who feels very, very Jack Sparrow in a lot of ways, except he's undead. I guess that's also Jack Sparrow, and his crawling claw just crawls around him. He's got it severed, which is fun. You've got Redneck Bird Lady. You've got where's that dude's picture? Commodore Crux, who's he's probably the biggest main character because he becomes your captain of this crew, and very much reminds me of the kind of British colonial period hippogriff, or not hippogriffs, the gifts or griffs, whatever, with the pipes and the old like flintlock pistols and everything. Looks fucking fantastic, and he's absolutely amazing. I can already picture the voices I would do, and you eventually get one of his second in commands later on. You collect a lot of fun NPCs. You go on these adventures. There's a downed Nautiloid ship that you explore, and then you get attacked by like Neogis, and then you finally get to the Rock of Brawl. It's actually in part 2. You finally get to Rock of Brawl, where you get to explore that area. That's when you meet Commodore Crux at the Happy Beholder, and you get to take him, and you have to be able to convince this woman tiefling that he's rented it out to be able to. So you might end up with her on your crew to try to take the ship back from it, and then you go on to all these other. It just does a really fun job of going from place to place. You learn more information. You learn about the Astral Elves. Eventually, you come across the Vampirate character who's actually, he says, "Oh, I've got a weapon," and he comes on board, and then his crew mutinies, so you got to chase after his ship. And then you finally realize the big twist is that he's got the princess of the entire empire of the Astral Elves has been captured, and she's actually wants to turn against her brother who's been doing all these things. The plot works really well. It constantly moves forward. There's really fun stuff going on constantly. I love the moment where you end up in the arena, which is this one, Vokoth's base, who is one of those psionic giant people. It felt very much like Return of the Jedi, the Rancor fight, or any number of Star Trek episodes where you're, bare-chested fighting the creatures on a planet side. It hits a lot of the sci-fi action adventure beats that I was absolutely looking for. You can see all these different creatures, and of course he uses a mirror of life trapping to be able to unlock and spawn all these creatures, including like a megapede. And then the actual prince shows up on his dragon, and he demands the princess turn over, and she secretly gives the players one of her rings and says, "Hey, come find me and get back here." This is exactly how I run D&D, which is why I'm so excited and passionate about this adventure. It just does so many fun, cool story moments. There's a good mix of like action adventure, but also there's a chance for you to get into the like political side of the you're trying to build this coalition of rebels that are fighting back against which feels very like moments in like Mass Effect and Dragon Age, where you're collecting all the factions together and you're trying to convince them to join your cause and go on this suicide mission into the Astral Elves dominion and battle them. And the only real, and I really do think it's a fabulous adventure. My really only complaint is it kind of peters out a little bit at the end. I think the final part is unfortunately probably the weakest one. That's the one where you actually arrive. You've got your whole fleet arrives at the Astral Elf Dome, and it's kind of, there's not a lot of good rules and information about how your actual fleet operates and your armada gets there. And then when you actually arrive, it kind of slows down. You have a conversation with the soon-to-be Empire and then the sister, the princess. You end up just dueling against this one unique Zodar creature, and then Zodar has this weird Deus Ex Machina ability where it can use the wish spell once per its existence, and then it wishes and it like rejuvenates the players. It feels a little off and unearned at the end, and it goes into this weird like the One Ring and Mount Doom thing, where the goal is to take one of their rings and then fly it into their star system they've got, which kills somebody, and then that annihilates the entire Xaryxis Empire. Which I guess there's a choice to be made there. It's like, well, you either have to destroy the Xaryxis Empire, or you have to let them keep doing their thing and keep destroying other worlds. It's not that much of a moral quandary. I feel like they're still in the wrong for doing that. And it does say that obviously any one of your NPCs can certainly volunteer themselves to be the sacrifice rather than one of the player characters. I just think that I would say I would run this campaign 90% as is until we got to the ending area, and then I would make it a lot bigger. For example, we get this whole map of, I believe, the Astral, the Imperial Citadel. We don't use this shit at all. Like, you come in and you basically get immediately captured and you just get taken to the Temple of Light. And that's it. There's not like, this is not at all like used. So the end is just a little underwhelming and disappointing compared to the rest of the adventure, which has otherwise been absolutely amazing. There's no reason for this map to be this huge. Also, this is a hilariously ridiculous map. It's so stupid that it's this big. Like, why? It looks so bad on a VTT. Why are you doing that? It's so big and empty and ugh. But seriously, this is an incredible adventure. I really love it. I don't know if it's top 5 for me, if 5e adventures specifically, but gosh, it may be top 10 compared to all the different 5e adventures they've released, which is, you could argue, is not saying a lot, but also I would say this is, again, just a level 5 through 8, probably 10 to 15 session adventure, and yet it does everything so well. It does a great job of utilizing the monsters from the Astral Menagerie. Like, it hits all the Astral Sea space stuff that I wanted. A lot of the like Navy, like, a lot of this could be on the ocean stuff that you would be exploring. Like, honestly, I would love for them to create, or you could take a lot of this and turn into a Ghost of Saltmarsh adventure and just slightly tweak things around, and it's a great, naval sea-based adventure too. So it does a lot of really cool things. I was really impressed with this adventure, despite it kind of petering out at the very end. Otherwise, I think it's kind of a big thumbs up, and I don't see enough people talking about how cool this freaking adventure is. So I'm gonna maybe even die on that hill of saying Light of Xaryxis is a fantastic adventure that I could absolutely see myself running, and it would make a really interesting, crazy cool sequel to, like I said, a Phandelver or a Dragon Ice or something, where the players already get through those early tier 1 levels, or just have your player start at 5th level, fuck it, and play through Light of Xaryxis. But I think it's a lot of fun. It's to where it's on milestones, so every one of these parts you would level up. So I believe throughout part 4 you are level 8, so you start 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you would be presumably 9 by the end. But I think it's a great adventure. All right, let's go over my pros and cons for Spelljammer's Adventures in Space. Pros: I like the new races, fun and exotic new races that were added. I think they're all cool and interesting. They do different things. It's disappointing we still don't have a good canine type race yet. We've got like every monkey finally checks another animal box. We've got plenty of robots and different elves. I need to expand the furry base a little more, and I want to play as a canine type creature that's not necessarily a werewolf. So Wizards, get on that. But honestly, I think they're really cool. I mean, the ooze creature, very cool, but could be a little problematic for DMs just for their ability to squeeze through doors and shit. Pros: over a dozen spelljamming ships with token art and stat blocks. I was very impressed with how that looks in Roll20 specifically, with the way the tokens look and the stat sheets and everything. Very cool. And then we get 16 of them. Pro: the Rock of Brawl is an excellent adventure hub. I mean, it's a third of the freaking source book, so it better be, and it's cool. I like a lot of it. It would absolutely be used in every spelljamming campaign as your hub adventure city. For example, I liked it a lot more than the Radiant Citadel from Journeys to the Radiant Citadel. That was an example of a not great adventure hub. I thought it was very boring. That is not the case with Rock of Brawl, which is a very cool one. Pro: the Light of Xaryxis is an excellent action-packed mini-campaign full of memorable characters and exciting cliffhangers. I just love this freaking adventure so much. And to build on that as another pro, the adventure also features many gnarly creatures from Boo's and Astral Menagerie, which includes all of those different NPC, different civilizations. Almost feels like an appetizer, where you're ordering a lot of little things. Like, you'll see little, here's a scene from the Artox chasing this one dude off the planet, and here's a scene of the Neogi coming in, but they're gonna get, chased off by the naval. Like, sometimes they kind of cheat with the cliffhanger. Like, one of them, the cliffhanger is that Gith Yankee showing up on the dragon, but then the next chapter starts with he literally just says, "Hey everybody, welcome to Doom Space and enjoy your stay," and then he flies off. Like, it's not really a thing. So, but most of the time the cliffhanger does lead to some cool moments. All right, time for the cons. Cons: missing adventure ideas and locations, obviously beyond Light of Xaryxis. So there's just no good way to build. There's not a lot of information for me as a DM who doesn't know Spelljammer to build a compelling campaign around Astral Sea that is either before or after Light of Xaryxis, other than being able to do more in Rock of Brawl. So I'm really going to be looking at the DM's Guild for filling out some of that information, because I was pretty disappointed that for a source book it is lacking in that regard. Also, the source book lacks, as another con, ship-to-ship combat rules. I think in general, if you wanted crunchier rules for your ship mechanics, I think you're going to come away very, very disappointed. And the other con is that, unfortunately, the adventure does lack color on its maps. One thing that Roll20 did do is include generic maps for scenes that there would be battles for that aren't included. So, for example, like the docks, the city streets and the docks, which I believe happen very early on in the adventure, like when the exciting incidents happen in that generic town you're in. And then again, if you have a battle in the Rock of Brawl, And later on, I believe Rocky Plateau is at the Artox are chasing after Warwick, and then later Blazers show up for whatever reason. I appreciate Roll20 did this. At least they acknowledge the fact that, like, hey, there's scenes that there should be maps for that Wizards didn't provide maps for, that we're going to try to at least give you this blank parchment map for. That's fine. It'd be nice if Roll20 went a little farther and found one of your mini arts pieces that you've got in there somewhere, and you could try to, you know, throw something together for me, but at least you're acknowledging the fact that there's missing maps in here. And unfortunately, Wizards does not provide very great VTT capable maps for the maps that we would need here, which does drag the adventure down, which is a bummer because otherwise I really like this adventure. Final verdict. While the 5e Spelljammer sourcebook is woefully undercooked in several ways, the spelljamming ships are cool, the new monsters are interesting, and the included adventure hits all the right notes for an exciting sci-fi romp across the Astral Sea. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel and support my work at patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shout outs to the Platinum patrons: Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, William, I'm Loud, Brandon, Genocider, David, Eclectic, Roleplayer Roll, Christopher, Brian, William, David, Jammin' Clams, Christina, Corey, Koa1337, and Jacob. And gold patrons: RPG Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcus, Dead Lizard Lounge, Sam, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, Scott, Humanoid Sized Sphincter, Stephanie, and Refus. Thank you all very much for your support.